Yo, what is up, boys? It is your boy Xehther here, back at it again with the fourth installment for what if Deku could use the 8 gates. Now, before I start this video off, I gotta do a little bit of shameless plugging. You guys know exactly what it is I'm about to say. Me, your boy Rogue X, Izukage, and Phoenix Sanin started a YouTube channel recently where it's basically all of us together making what ifs for you guys. So in case you guys want any more content from me or any of the people that I recently just mentioned, make sure to go down below and basically just check out our channel. It's going to be linked in the description, and yeah, just go check that out. But with that being said, I don't want to stall for much longer, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, so before we actually start today's part, I am going to be giving off a little bit of a recap for what happened on our last part, seeing as, it's been like 2 days since the last part, and I'm pretty sure most people, kind of forgot a couple of things, not everything, since, it's not really that hard to keep up with this stuff. But, as you guys can remember, Deku and Melissa basically ended up getting together, and, well, Deku ended up clapping him cheeks, and, he basically ended up getting a gravity room created for him, similar and doing something similar to Goku's training, but just on crack, because our man, this version of Deku is just goated. Like, just simply, this man of Deku is simply goated. And yeah, he ended up getting a gravity room, and basically, well, they ended up taking the UA quirk assessments, and they basically ended up going through the USJ event where Deku ended up bodying most of the villains, and actually none of the villains ended up getting away in this version of events, which basically is just going to lead us into, well, the week break, and that is where we're going to be starting. Okay, so after all of the events of the last part happened, we are basically just going to have Deku essentially just help out with the cleaning process and get questioned by some of the investigators who are doing, taking care of that stuff. And after this point, Deku would basically go home, as he'd basically get some rest, and he'd be preparing himself for the 2-week break that they're actually going to be having. Seeing as in this version of events, they're actually going to give them 2 weeks to train before the UA school festival. So they're going to get a little bit of time extra. But the bad thing is that as soon as they come back, they're given notice that the very first day where they come back, they're only going to have that day, and right after that, they're going to have the UA festival. So that being said, we have a lot to cover. Alright, so in terms of how Deku is going to be training for the 2 weeks that he has off, Deku is going to be training with Melissa in terms of hand-to-hand combat and helping her increase her training routine. Deku would have seen that Melissa is more versatile in army-style combat, and she fights in a way like Sonya Blade. I don't know if many of you guys play Mortal Kombat, but she fights in a way similar to Sonya Blade from, the video game. And her training routine is actually pretty tough too. Seeing as she's quirkless just like Deku definitely sees a lot of potential in her, and if it wasn't for him training like crazy, he and her probably would be at the same level, but due to Deku just being insane, he was able to get even further. Plus the gates, something that not many people can access. Yeah, the man's goated. So he basically ends up helping Melissa with hand-to-hand combat, and he starts helping her out with her training routine, telling her that she should double it. It may feel as if her limbs are getting ready to pop off, but she has to go through that pain to get the best results. And so she does that for the first week, and on the second week, she actually ends up try her luck with the gravity chamber, where she actually uses the gravity well, and seeing as she's pretty toned, by the end of the week she's basically able to use about 7 times Earth's normal gravity instead of our boy Deku's, who was 10 times normal Earth's gravity by like the first day. And she's not at that level quite yet, but she's definitely powerful. So I believe 7 times normal gravity is an incredible feat for any normal human without like any of these key abilities, or able to destroy the moon in half. So yeah, I think 7 times normal gravity is pretty doable. And at this point, Deku had basically just been training his body even more, trying to comfortably be able to access the 5th gate. See, before, he was barely able to access into the 5th gate with a lot of strain. But after the 2 weeks, Deku was able to actually access the 5th gate of, the hidden, no, not the hidden gates, but, the 8 inner gates that, everybody has within them. Deku was able to access all the way to the 5th one comfortably. He can literally just tap into that thing as easy as it is for us to breathe. So yeah, Deku has a pretty perfect mastery over the 5th gate, and it even causes him 0 strain, seeing as people like Rock Lee and Might Guy, they were more focused on unlocking them rather than mastering them and basically being able to use them without, backlashes. But our boy Deku's focusing on lessening the backlashes, and he can even access the 6th gate after the first week with minimal strain. So like it hurts the boy. And it hurts almost as much as Rock Lee using the 4th gate in the fight against Gaara in normal Naruto, the first part. And yeah, that's pretty much how everything's basically going from this point on. This is essentially how the 2-week training time that they get is basically used. And well, this is when we're just gonna go ahead and skip on over to when they actually arrive back to class. Now, they would basically arrive back to class, and here is where they would have a pretty normal day. After they arrive back, people just feel a totally different aura coming off of Melissa. She just feels more powerful and just more determined than ever. And Deku and Melissa look pretty relaxed, and you may be wondering why this is. Well, Deku was studying a little bit of hands-on biology. He's more of a physical learner, I guess you could say. He's more of a hands-on learner, I guess. And yeah. Anyways, that being said, though, Deku was basically told by Zawa and everybody else that they're going to be having the UA Spool Festival, and this is when all the people from the original canon would basically be waiting by the door, to which Bakugo would essentially tell everybody that they're all just extras and to get out of his way, which they would, and this would lead to all the other classes basically just having a little bit of a anger towards Class 1A, because they think that Class 1A thinks they're better than everybody, when in reality they are, but they don't think that, So, that being said, Deku basically just tells everybody he's sorry on Bakugo's behalf, and he walks off with Melissa, to which everybody just feels the aura coming off of them, and they just feel a total sense of just power. They feel a sort of animalistic instinct coming off of Deku, and it's pretty threatening. It's inviting as well as, it's kind of inviting where, you can trust him, but like if you were to make this man mad, your whole career's over. Like, come on now. He was able to use 2nd gate and obliterate the Nomu in 3 punches. That means 2nd gate Deku is already as powerful as All Might in his prime. So, yeah, that shows you a lot of what Deku can do. Now, moving on, we're going to skip over to the very next day, the day of the first day of the UA School Festival, where they would basically all arrive, and Deku would actually be told that he's going to be having to give the speech. Deku would look towards midnight, and he would actually tell her that, he wasn't aware, and she would basically just tell him to go out there and give it his best shot, She's sure it won't be that bad. She forgot to tell him. Deku would low-key grit his teeth, and he would then walk up there as he would basically just say, "Everybody, give it your best, plus Ultra style. We all need to show the world that we're here and that we are going to be the next generation of great heroes. We need to show the world what this school is all about. Plus Ultra," as he would yell that, everybody in the crowd would basically just start screaming like Izuku, Izuku, like going crazy. Now, Deku would of course basically just look at them, and everybody would be pretty, they'd all be pretty hyped for what's to come. As pretty much before anything could have started, All Might would have told Deku that he needs to show that he is here. If he's going to be talking all like that he needs to as well try his best. As Deku would understand the sentiment, and immediately before the race can even begin, like before the bullet that Midnight shoots, like the starter gun, before she can even shoot that, Deku would have literally blitzed over to the finish line by accessing his 5th gate. It would have seemed as if he merely just teleported there, and people in the crowd would begin to wonder what that kid's quirk is. It must be some sort of teleportation or super speed quirk, because they didn't even see him move. Deku was so fast that Todoroki's eyes didn't do a thing to him. And in terms of Melissa, come on now, we gotta cover our girl Melissa. She would proceed to basically click a button on her chest, which would activate a suit that actually gives her the ability to, increase her physical stats by 2 times, as well as giving her some rocket boots and propellers. She'd basically just run through the whole thing, and she would use grappling hooks and all the technology she has available to her to blitz over to the finish line. And she would come in 3rd place behind Bakugo and Todoroki. Now, after all that, Bakugo would look at Deku and just give him a little bit of a snarl, telling him that that was just a race, not to get too ahead of himself, that if they end up fighting during this time, he's over. It's done for. Bakugo's finally going to show him the difference between their strengths. You know, he trained even harder than he's ever trained in his life, and Deku's finally gonna know what it's like to lose, to have his head hit the pavement. Deku would look at Bakugo and say, you can try it, and Bakugo would just scoff at that notion as he would proceed to basically walk away. This is when they would all go into the waiting room, as they would all basically just be told that they're going to be having oh my god, your boy looking tired. They're going to be having the cavalry battle. Now, in terms of the cavalry battle, Melissa has a lot of technology on her side, might I add, a lot of it. These are all her creations. So as soon as everything basically starts, Deku would immediately proceed to basically just pick his team. He would be handed the 10 million points. And in terms of his team, he would of course be picking Melissa, himself, Mei Hatsume, and Tokiyami, seeing as he and Uraraka aren't exactly the greatest of friends in this version, so I don't really see him and Uraraka basically getting on the same team. So Mei Hatsume gets in it, and Tokiyami does as well. And now, before the race can ever start, everybody would basically hold up Deku, and Deku is actually going to be the one with the headband. Deku would have asked Melissa to be up there, but she says that it's going to be a better choice for him to do that, seeing as he's the strongest and he'll be able to keep people away. As Deku would say that, you know, she's kind of right. They'd put on the little boots, and Melissa would actually use her gravity technology, something similar to the gravity chamber, to where anything 20 meters by them has 20 times normal gravity times force on top of them. So let's say Bakugo was to come shooting his explosions towards Deku's direction, immediately he would fall to the ground under the pressure of 20 times normal Earth's gravity. As soon as everything starts, Bakugo would tell his team that they're going straight after that loser. As before he can even do that, another team, another, you know, useless one, blitzes towards Deku, or just runs towards his direction, I guess you could say, and immediately that whole team just falls under the pressure. Another team sees that and laughs, as they would say that they're probably just weak, and they would fall under that pressure as well, saying that it feels as if gravity was multiplied 20 times. As Bakugo would finally get the picture, Deku would smile towards Bakugo's direction as Bakugo looks at him and says, "You got lucky." As he would proceed to basically run towards Todoroki, and Bakugo and Todoroki would be, you know, having a little battle of their own, with Todoroki actually just kind of deciding that he doesn't have the time to deal with his stuff. He needs to go get other headbands, and Bakugo would have done the same. Bakugo would begin to basically rush and try to get other people's headbands, while Todoroki would try to go after Deku. He would shoot a giant amount of ice towards Deku, and Deku would jump up in the air as he would say, "Leave Hurricane!" blowing the ice away, with Todoroki realizing just how powerful this kid is. He would low-key get a little angry just due to the fact that he's supposed to be the greatest with nothing but half his power. And this is when Bakugo would rush at Todoroki as he steals his headband, and Todoroki and Bakugo would basically just get into a fight where they're rushing towards each other's headbands, meaning one of them is going to get kicked out. But by the end of everything, Todoroki was able to steal his headband back, and they were barely able to both teams get in. With Deku's team being in first place, this is going to lead us into the battles which are going to be had. As in terms of this, I'm gonna say that I'm just gonna, you know, blitz over and cover the Deku versus Shinso battle. Now, this battle would definitely go a lot different than the one that we had in canon, just due to the fact that in this version, Deku is definitely going to get caught off guard by Shinso's mind control ability. This version of Deku isn't friends with Ojiro, and I feel like even if Ojiro was to tell Deku that, Deku would still reply. Like, there's no way this version of Deku wouldn't reply if Shinso was to say something like, "That girlfriend of yours seems awfully weak," or he just begins to talk anything about Melissa. Deku would definitely answer. And so that's what Shinso does. He noticed that he was kind of close with her, and he uses that to his advantage. He would tell Deku that she seems like she's throwing herself at everybody. And Deku would immediately get angry after hearing Shinso say that. He would say, "How dare!" But before he can finish that sentence, Shinso would have already put him under his mind control, and Deku would immediately just realize that he had just messed up big time. As Deku would then be told by Shinso to walk off the stage, and this is when people would say, "What's that kid doing?" As some people on the stage would be like, "Wait, is that mind control?" And then President Mike would say, "Oh my god, incredible! Izuku Midoriya was put under mind control by Shinso." Last name insert here because I don't know his last name. And Deku would start walking off the stage as Deku would realize what's going on inside of his mindscape, but not really having the vestiges. He would, through sheer will alone, be able to break out of Shinso's mind washing ability. And he would immediately blitz towards him as he would kick him in the gut, send Shinso flying onto the grass, and he would immediately just get knocked out as Deku would be breathing heavily, saying that that was a very close call. He cannot afford to lose, that he definitely has to be more careful later on. And this would lead into Deku going into the waiting room with Melissa, just basically both talking about their matches. Melissa would have won her first match, and Deku would basically just congratulate her as they're talking about, things or whatever. And this is when Todoroki would bust into the room, as Bakugo was actually on his way as well. We would then see Todoroki declaring war on Deku. On the way out, he would then see Bakugo, and Bakugo would basically get nudged on the shoulder by Todoroki as Bakugo would get angry, and Todoroki would say that you're not even worth acknowledging, with Bakugo saying that he can't wait to tear him limb from limb, half and half, as he would say, too bad I won't get to, because Deku's gonna do that pleasure for me. As Deku would look at Bakugo, Bakugo would tell Deku not to write him off just yet, and he would then walk away as he would grunt, and Deku would just be sitting there with Melissa, as she would tell him that Deku definitely has a little bit of a problem with that kid, doesn't he? Deku would say that she has no idea, and they would basically just start laughing as Deku would say that, well, looks like he's gonna have to put that half and half kid in his place, as Melissa would say not to do him too dirty, as Deku would say, do you really mean that? Melissa would say no. Go tear that kid a new one. As Deku would smile, he would then look towards Melissa and say, sure thing, as he would proceed to essentially look right at Todoroki before the battle would start. And as soon as President Mike says go, Deku would blitz towards Todoroki's direction as he would grab him by the shirt, and he would just literally throw him outside of the arena. But Deku would have known that Todoroki would have used his ice, and Todoroki would use a giant pillar of ice to stop himself, which he would crash into. And right when Todoroki crashes into it, Deku would immediately activate the first gate as he would blitz towards Todoroki and kick him through the pillar of ice into the wall, as Todoroki would just get knocked out. His eyes would go white, and he would just start being just laying there, like literally lifeless, as Deku would then proceed to basically walk away from the stage, and people would say, no way, Izuku Midoriya just beat Endeavor's son, as people in the crowd would just start going wild, and Deku would just start smiling as he says that that was pretty easy. Bakugo would look at him and say that that was a pretty impressive thing he did, that even though that may have worked on Bakugo one time, but after seeing that, there's no way anything like that's gonna work. Deku would look at Bakugo and just tell him that, yeah, whatever, if he's gonna talk so big, he might as well actually be able to back it up this time. To which Bakugo would basically just look at him and not say a word, as this time he decides that he's just gonna let his fight show, Deku what kind of training he's been doing. Now it's at this point that Bakugo and Deku would be in the arena, and immediately Bakugo would tell Deku that he doesn't stand a single sliver of a chance against him. To which Deku would look at Bakugo and tell him that he's all talk and no bark, and that he's all bark and no bite. As Bakugo would look towards Deku and angrily just blitz him. And right before Bakugo even gets the chance to try to move, Deku would literally say, "Fifth gate, open!" as he would stomp on the arena, and immediately the arena would shatter as Bakugo would get flung into the air by one of the arena, by the other half of the arena. He would get thrown into the air as Bakugo would basically shoot explosions to try to stabilize himself. Deku would go straight at Bakugo as he would say, "You want to see what I'm made out of? Fine." As he would immediately say, "But don't say I didn't warn you." As he would say that right behind Bakugo, and in an instant, Bakugo's life would literally flash before his eyes as Deku would start to literally ragdoll Bakugo around. He would literally be stepping on air as he just starts hitting Bakugo, ricocheting him back and forth in every direction that you guys can imagine. Bakugo would just start getting absolutely destroyed, and at the end of it, Deku would kick him up by his jaw as he would basically say, "Primary Lotus," as the bandages on his arm would basically start unraveling, and this is when Deku would capture Bakugo as he just starts spinning towards the ground. Bakugo would immediately get his head crushed into the ground, but the reason that he survives this is because our boy Who's the guy that has like the little wall power? The guy who can, basically control mud or something like that? Like Cementos would have softened the ground, so Bakugo didn't die from that attack. And afterwards, Deku would just be declared the winner, as Bakugo was already knocked out by the time that he ricocheted him 2 times. Deku would then look at Bakugo as he would spit on him, and he would then say, "That's where my respect for you is at, Bakugo." As after seeing that, everybody would basically just go silent, and they would just say that this kid is incredible. He's going to be the next All Might. People would completely disregard the fact that Deku just spit on another student, and they would just start cheering like crazy, as it's at this point that Deku would have won the entirety of the sports festival, seeing as Bakugo actually had to go against Melissa, and he would have ended up beating her by just barely. He used a couple cheap tactics and destroyed her. And yeah, that's basically what ends up happening. After this, he would get awarded his medal, with Bakugo getting second, Todoroki third. And, well, they would basically all just go back to class. Okay, your boy had to go get some water, so I stopped the recording. But I'm pretty sure most of you guys probably wouldn't have noticed. Anyways, so yeah, Deku would end up winning the sports festival, and this is when all of them would basically go back to class. As they're all back in class, Deku would basically just be told, as well as the rest of the class, that they're actually going to be having to pick their hero names today, which Midnight would walk in, and she would basically proceed to start telling everybody to start picking their names. Everybody in the class would start picking their usual canon names, and this is when everybody would proceed to essentially just pick their normal names. Everybody would pick, everything that they got in canon, and Deku would end up picking the name of Rock Lee. He's going to be the combat hero. No, the quirkless hero. Yes, he's going to be the quirkless hero, Rock Lee. And, I could have given him Mike Guy or something different, but I figured I'd stick with Rock Lee, seeing as, he has the 8 gates and he low-key looks like Lee. Let me call him Rock Lee instead. So yeah, that's what your boy's gonna do. That being said, though, we're just vibing, and this is when we're actually going to cut over to Deku basically being told that they're all, not just Deku, but all of them are actually going to having to pick their internship options, as they're all basically told that they're all going to have to go into intern with somebody. And well, to put it simply, they would all basically just be walked out of there, as they'd basically all choose their original counterpart choices. Deku in this version would still end up going with Gran Torino, just due to the fact that, All Might did low-key teach him some things that he knows. And, even though Deku is more powerful, Deku's always going to trust All Might's judgment. So if he tells him that he should go with Gran Torino, because that will most likely give him the best approach, he's going to go with Gran Torino. So Deku would, of course, say his goodbyes to Melissa, and he would get one last little, study session with her, just because, why not? He would proceed to basically just, he'd have a pretty good time, and, he'd relieve some pent-up stress. Bakugo, after the fact that Deku destroyed him the way that he did, and he was able to see what happened in the sports festival live on television, Bakugo, his whole facade of thinking that he's the strongest it completely changed. Bakugo quite literally had a total sex change just in the middle of that battle when Deku was just whooping the man. So Bakugo's whole, Chihuahua attitude, where he likes to talk a lot but can't even back it up, yeah, that goes away. Bakugo just kind of stays quiet, and he doesn't be talking or be loud and obnoxious like our normal counterpart Bakugo. Of course, I know Bakugo changes later on, but that is later on, and that's due to different circumstances that won't be happening here. So, there has to be some way for Bakugo to calm down, and he needs to be put down a couple notches. So yeah, that would essentially happen to Bakugo. And in terms of what happens with Todoroki never ends up being told by Deku to use his fire side because it's his, and instead he still ends up having that thing where he doesn't like using it. Now, in terms of Melissa, she actually would have ended up going with Aizawa for the internship, seeing as she actually wants to learn how to maybe use that scarf of his, but just due to the fact that that scarf actually takes like years to master, she ends up learning just a little bit during her time as with Aizawa's agency. And Deku with Gran Torino would basically spend most of his time getting his head knocked in. Honestly, Deku would get blitzed over and over again by Gran Torino, who would have actually told him that he's not allowed to use any of the gates. And then instead of training nothing but his body this time we're going to be training his reaction speed, as well as, you know, his ability to take a hit. Because, you know, Deku is strong, but, you know, he's pretty sure he doesn't know how to take a hit, just due to the fact that Deku doesn't really take him many of those nowadays. You know, before he was really used to taking hits. You know, he was the master of taking hits. Thanks to Bakugo. You know, Bakugo was doing his training. You know, Bakugo was low-key training Deku back in the day when he was hitting him a lot. You know, if you really think about it, Bakugo wasn't really the bad guy. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously though, Deku needs to, you know, get his reaction speed up, as well as, you know, his tolerance to pain. So that's essentially what Deku does during that time. And Deku, he's not very happy with you know, getting beat up by some old man every 10 seconds. So eventually he learns the hang of it. And this is where it's all basically going to lead us to the day where they arrive at Hosu City, and the Nomu basically attacks the side of the train, where they all are basically told that where they're all essentially told that basically they have to sorry guys, you know, I know I'm stopping a lot during this recording, but your boy's very tired, low key, you know, your boy don't even want to be recording right now. I'm so tired, I need some sleep. But you know, I love y'all, and I'm not about to fail on what I said. It's triple upload today or nothing. So yeah, Deku would proceed to basically clown the Nomu. He would destroy that Nomu. Speaking of clowns, I dropped a story time today, you know, the same day that you guys are watching this, and it's about my killer clown experience back in 2016-17. So if you guys want to find out what happens in that, I suggest you guys go check out that video, you know, later after you guys finish this, seeing as, you know, y'all gotta finish listening to the rest of this story before you go. So anyways, that being said, Deku would basically clap the Nomu, and he would actually end up saving Ida in this version, because Ida still would have been dumb and still tried to go take out Stain all by himself, even though he can't even take out like normal hero students who are pretty weak. Like, come on now, you're not about to take out the hero killer if you can barely take out like your classmates. Like, come on now, it's just not gonna happen. So yeah, Ida with his baby mufflers just completely almost got put on a t-shirt. But if it wasn't for Deku, you know, he probably would have put on that t-shirt. But anyways, Deku proceeds to save Ida, and well, from here the events just kind of just play out with Deku just taking out the rest of the Nomus that are attacking Hosu City. Oh wait, actually no, they're should there still be Nomus? You know what, I'm just gonna say that you know, All For One ends up making a deal with Stain, and you know, he ends up giving Stain a couple of Nomus to cause some havoc in the city for Stain to basically catch some heroes, as you know, that's the reason. Just because if it's not for that, Ida is going to get put on a t-shirt again. And I do my guy Ida way too wrong sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. Some of you guys always be commenting like, yo Xehther, dude, stop killing Ida, bro, what has he ever done to you? Now to that I say nothing. I just don't like smart, you know, smart people, like people who are smart asses like him. So yeah, that's what he did to me. Yep, that's what he did to me. Anyways, that being said, the video is about like 27 minutes long at this point, so I'm pretty sure that this is like a good point to leave the video off on. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to go down below and let me know what you guys liked about it, as well as, you know, comment down what you guys think should happen for the next part, which most likely is going to be the finale to this series. This series, you know, it's pretty fire. You know, I took my time with this series, but all good things must come to an end, and the series needs to make room for other series that are coming very, very soon. And trust me guys, even though you guys are probably gonna hate to see this one go, you guys are going to love to see the next ones come in. So with that being said though guys, remember, as always, I love each and every single one of you guys. Thank you so much for getting me to 13K, and yeah, that has been your boy Xehther. With that being said, you know, I'm out. Peace, bye.